I hear and obey. I will give you snacks. Yes, my liege. Well, good evening, Glue Troopers. Max of Max's Models here, and made some progress on the Catalina, but it's been a bit of an uphill battle, a little more than I expected. Probably because I'm trying so hard to, do a real good job. And anyway, we'll start off with some of the basics. We got the landing gears done, and by the way, although you can't hardly tell, the tires are actually painted in black rubber. Although the nose wheel, the nose tire, I cover with some of that tire solution, which puts a shine on it. Because at the moment, I'm anticipating doing this as taxiing out of the water. So the underbelly and wheels will be wet and the rest of it will, be flat. Now, there were a whole bunch of little things today. So, let's just start off with fitting the sides was tricky. Fitting the landing gears was tricky. Figuring out which way the doors went. I had to actually go out online and see how a Catalina landing gear worked to understand exactly where that extra little door was supposed to go. And there are text instructions, but they're not real clear. And getting the right gear on the right side, getting them oriented, and at one point, one of them, they had come out of the hole. So they just, I guess the glue bond wasn't strong enough, so I wound up pulling the whole gear out and basically rebuilding it. And over on his channel, Copperhead Modeling, who's the other half of this build challenge, he was commenting today on his channel that I'll link below, that he was having some issues with the landing gear on that one. The Catalina has a very complex landing gear, which isn't really that surprising, partly because, being designed in the 30s, but also an amphibian of that size, a flying boat. I mean, it was all new. I've heard some people claim that this might have been the first monoplane flying boat, or one of its predecessors. But Consolidated was in a flying boat game from very early on. So one of the other things was I did a little test fit and realized, although you can't see in the cockpit that well, you can still see. So I decided to go ahead and just completely redo the cockpit. I cut out the seats, got some 1/72 scale pilots, trimmed them down to fit, made an actual yoke and pedestal sort of thingy bar for the pilots to put across their laps. So at least it would look a little more accurate. And went ahead and used the other. I had to tear up the decal. So fortunately, I had two sets of decals. I was able to use the other instrument decal to get that on. So that actually wasn't too tough, painted it up. And I decided I was going to add another crewman. So I actually found a 1/72 scale crewman, painted up like a sailor, like an air crew member, enlisted air crew member, and put him back between the waist guns, because this thing's got those big blisters, and except for the two 50 caliber machine guns, it's devoid of any real detail. So I thought that would just add a little something to it. And I had to pluck the guns out because I'm going to have to put those clear parts back in the underside of the blister frame. I'm almost halfway inclined just to use some of that canopy glue and just build it up, but I think I can get the parts in. But I want to do a little more painting on it, which brings us to the next thing. I am going to have to mask the canopy, because everything, after being dipped in wax, everything is done in clear coat, and it's nice and shiny, and the rest of the airplane's flat. Plus, obviously, the airplane needs more black paint on it. And so I am going to probably use the liquid stuff to mask the canopies, and then just hit it with some dull coat and try not to fog the windows. Also, of course, I'll be hitting it with some more black paint, as we talked about. I got some seams to deal with, and that's probably going to be I don't know, I might get to it tomorrow. And tomorrow I should get started on the wings and engines. And this airplane's very easy. I mean, the paint job's essentially black, flat black for 95% of it. Internals zinc chromate. And I have actually seen Catalinas in this paint scheme. Ken and I saw one at the Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport Museum. They had a guy who was in there. And it's not until you walk up to one of these beasts, you realize how big they are. And not only that, how massive that landing gear is and how heavy it is. I mean, it seems small, but I shouldn't say it seems small. you just you've got to see one to appreciate how heavy duty and industrial grade everything is on it. And the inside of the wheel well and everything was painted black. And so now one of the things I did with the wheels, the rims, is I did paint them black, but I put a little I mixed a little gray and a little silver to get this subdued aluminum look, because these wheels had just wear and tear. They paint them in the field. I also noticed that even the struts on the real airplanes, including the oleos, were black. And I think they used some sort of black oil grease lubricant to try and the airplane's pretty much totally black. And the nose gear is the one they didn't worry with because it was retracted, so they weren't worried about trying to hide it. And that's another thing, no place does Machat's law of no two aircraft are painted the same, exact same, than in the Black Cats, because I looked through a whole bunch of the squadrons and even different airplanes in the squadron, and there's no two of them that are alike. Some have the nationality markers completely obliterated. Some of them have them subdued. Some of them have them bright and shiny. And of course, then it depends on when, because the markings changed. So it's, I mean, you could pretty much paint this thing black, put a number on the tail, and call it correct. It'd be hard for anyone to argue with you. Then the other thing is that getting the cockpit and the nose gear to seat is a trick, because everybody had warned me this thing's a real tail sitter. So I put 3 44 caliber slugs soaked up in epoxy, and it was barely sitting on its nose. I was like, wow. So I dropped a 4th slug in there. Unfortunately, I thought the epoxy had hardened. It hadn't. And moving things around, and they rolled the rear. So I was like, okay, so now I got it where it sits on its nose reliably. And with that 4th slug, I'm sure it will, even with the wings and everything on it. But I got to get that stuff overnight to harden. Hopefully they're still, even though they rattled around, I dripped it like honey on there, so hopefully they're all gonna secure in place. And I have used actually what it was is Gorilla Glue to get the slugs to these 44 caliber slugs. Have a bunch of them left over when I used to reload for cowboy action. And that is what we did on that. Now, during the in-betweens, I went back to the little Fiat G50 and touched it up. And I got the windshield on it and the decals and everything. And I was like, all I have to do is the canopy frame, and the closest paint pen I had was brown, but it wouldn't quite match. And when I put it on there, I just got curious that, this camouflage scheme's clearly something I just sort of made up based on the Italian jobs, just having fun. But if I was to circle these things and draw, because some of the Italian paint schemes had like little circles and things around it, and I was like, so I started, hey, that looked pretty cool. May not have been accurate, but I liked it. So I wound up doing that to the whole airplane, and now it's on the shelf. And it's Airfix. It's a little Airfix 1/70 second scale kit, and exactly what you expect. I had nothing to say about it, neither good nor bad. It was just 1/72 scale Airfix kit. Cowling could have had a better fit to it, but the airplane was exactly what you expect it to be. So enough about that. And it is the only Italian World War II Italian fighter I have, and so now I've got another one of the nations represented on my 1/72 scale shelf. And let's see, I never did get to work on the D-21 drone. I'm going to kit bash that into something, but haven't decided what yet. Imagination, half the fun of model building. Quick tangent. I could not get the airbrush to work despite soaking it overnight, and I kept playing with it, and finally, all of a sudden, it just mysteriously started working. So soaking it must have gotten something to dislodge after tinkering with it and cleaning it enough times. And while I was at it, I have this older airbrush that is stuck to my silly putty. Ow! What did I just poke myself with? Well, anyway, this is the other airbrush that I have that I had quit using, and since the first one was having trouble, I cleaned this one up and got it operating again too. So now I have 2 regular airbrushes plus the big Iwata. Crap, I'm bleeding. You know, I shouldn't share this because whatever fleeting respect you may have for me is about to go out the window. But I really don't have the sense God gave a goose. I soaked the Airbrush main body in this enamel thinner, and I had found this tray, which made a nice bucket. Everything fit perfectly. But I didn't have the good common sense to remove all the little plastic wheels out of here before I did it. Now I got to decant it back into the can. I mean, I'm going to pick all these wheels out before. But I mean, I just didn't even think about emptying this thing first because I was such a rush to get out of the TARDIS. So, no matter what thing you've done that you're kicking yourself for, makes you feel silly, just remember, stupidity and hydrogen, the two most common elements in the universe. The difference is stupidity is infinite. And that is what we did today. So tomorrow, start on the wings. Probably start putting the liquid cover so I can dry blast or flat shoot everything. And you know, it's coming along, and even once I get the airplane done, I have a lot left to do. There are a lot of seams to take care of, which aren't too horrible, but they need to be addressed. And I plan to make a little diorama of it coming out of the water. And I was going to make this guy a crew member, but I decided, you know what? Maybe I'll stick him out in front of it, marshalling it in or something. So that is where we are with that. I was going to add ammo boxes to the 50 cals, but I don't think you'd be able to see them. And quite frankly, they just sit up on these little tiny pedestals with a little mount. I'm a little afraid to add any weight to them or throw them any further off balance. But thought about maybe sawing one of these out and just have it like open when they're coming in. Sometimes you see them with the blisters open, but I thought, couple of things. One, it's coming out of the water. I would think they would keep the blisters shut, at least until they're all the way up on the ground. But also, there's not enough internal detail to. I mean, if you're going to do that, you need to have lots of And I thought about making bulkheads for the inside. I was like, nah, yeah. So, all right. So that is where we're at on the PBY challenge, and I'm getting a few more submissions for the Irwin Allen build. Still planning on a live stream. I got a sneaking suspicion that PBYs are going to be part of what we're going to be talking about, because like every model I build, trying to get things right, wondering where things are supposed to go, gets me researching. I now know more about the gear retraction system of a PBY Catalina than I ever thought I would. And it's not going to win me any bar bets or get me a job, but it's just cool stuff to know. All right, guys, you take care of yourselves. We will talk to you later. And as always, model on. I'm a little worried that now that's got those slugs in there, this model may be too heavy for the spindly landing gear.